Welcome back to Melanin Mosaic, where we share powerful stories that reveal the true cost of prejudice and the inevitable triumph of justice. I'm your narrator, and today we're diving into a story that will make you question everything you think you know about making assumptions based on appearance. What happens when prejudice meets reality? When bias collides with truth? Today's story follows Marcus Thompson, a successful entrepreneur, as he walks into what should have been a simple shopping trip. But what unfolds next will shock you, inspire you, and remind you why we should never judge a book by its cover. Before we begin, if you believe in equality, justice, and the power of truth to prevail, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support helps us continue sharing these important stories that need to be heard. Now let's begin. It was a crisp Tuesday morning in downtown Portland, Oregon. The autumn leaves danced in the gentle breeze as Marcus Thompson adjusted his baseball cap and walked toward Henderson's Electronics, a mid-size electronics store that had been serving the community for over 15 years. Marcus wore a simple hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, comfortable clothes for what he planned to be a quick shopping trip. Marcus had a specific mission that day. He needed to purchase several high-end laptops, tablets, and audio equipment for his new nonprofit organization, Digital Bridges, which provided technology access to underserved communities. The purchase would total nearly $30,000, and he had done his research. Henderson's Electronics had the inventory he needed and competitive prices. As Marcus approached the store's entrance, he noticed the large windows displaying the latest gadgets and a sign that read, "Welcome to Henderson's Electronics, serving our community since 2008. The store appeared busy with morning customers, and Marcus felt optimistic about making his purchases quickly and efficiently. The moment Marcus stepped through the automatic doors, he was struck by the store's impressive layout. Rows of gleaming electronics stretched across the spacious floor, from smartphones and tablets to high-end audio systems and computer equipment. The store hummed with activity, customers browsing, sales associates helping clients, and the general buzz of commerce. However, Marcus also noticed something else immediately. The way conversations seemed to pause as he entered, how eyes followed his movement, and the subtle shift in the store's atmosphere. He had experienced this before, but it never failed to disappoint him. Behind the main counter stood Robert Henderson, the store's owner and founder. Robert was a man in his early 50s, with graying hair and a stern expression that had grown more pronounced over the years. He had built Henderson's Electronics from the ground up, working 16-hour days in the early years to establish his business. He was proud of his success, but that pride had somehow transformed into a protective paranoia about his store and his customers. The moment Robert spotted Marcus, his demeanor changed. His eyes narrowed, and he immediately began watching Marcus's every move. In Robert's mind, his years of experience had taught him to be cautious about certain customers. He had convinced himself that he was simply being a good businessman, protecting his inventory and his livelihood. Marcus, unaware of the intense scrutiny he was under, made his way to the laptop section. He pulled out his phone and began checking the specifications of various models against his list. He needed machines that could handle video editing, graphic design, and coding, powerful computers that would serve the young people in his program. While Marcus examined a high-end MacBook Pro, he noticed Robert approaching from behind. The store owner pretended to organize nearby products, but Marcus could feel his presence like a shadow. When Marcus moved to look at gaming laptops, Robert followed, maintaining what he probably thought was a discreet distance. Other customers began to notice the strange dance playing out in the store. Sarah Martinez, a regular customer browsing tablets, watched as Robert literally followed Marcus from aisle to aisle. She found it odd and uncomfortable, but wasn't sure what to do about it. Marcus tried to ignore the unwanted attention and focused on his mission. He spent several minutes comparing specifications and prices, taking notes on his phone. When he moved to the audio equipment section, Robert was there within seconds, pretending to dust shelves that were already spotless. The situation escalated when Marcus picked up an expensive pair of studio headphones to examine them. Robert couldn't contain himself any longer. "Excuse me," Robert said, his voice carrying a barely concealed accusation. "Can I help you with something?" Marcus looked up, surprised by the aggressive tone. Yes, actually, I'm looking to make some significant purchases today. I need several laptops, tablets, and audio equipment for my organization. Robert's expression remained skeptical. Oh, really? And what organization would that be? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Marcus felt the familiar sting of having to justify his presence, his intentions, his very right to be treated like any other customer. I run a nonprofit called Digital Bridges, Marcus explained patiently. We provide technology access and training to underserved communities. I have a list of specific items I need to purchase. Robert glanced at Marcus's casual attire, his youth, and made a decision that would change everything. Well, these are expensive items. Are you sure you can afford them? I mean, do you have the money to make these purchases? The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. Around them, other customers had stopped pretending not to listen. The store had grown quiet except for the hum of electronics and the sound of Marcus's heartbeat in his ears. I'm sorry, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the anger building inside him. Robert, emboldened by what he saw as Marcus's inability to answer directly, pressed further. Look, I'm just trying to run a business here. I can't have people wasting my time or my staff's time if they're not serious buyers. These laptops cost $3,000 each. The audio equipment you're looking at is professional grade. I need to know you're a legitimate customer. Marcus took a deep breath. He had faced discrimination before, but it never got easier. The assumption that he couldn't afford expensive items, that his presence in the store was somehow suspicious, that he needed to prove his worthiness to spend his own money. It was a painful reminder of the prejudices that still existed. I understand you're running a business, Marcus replied calmly, but I'm not sure why you're questioning my ability to make purchases that other customers wouldn't be questioned about. Robert's face reddened slightly. I question anyone who seems suspicious. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal, Marcus repeated. Then why have you been following me around the store since I walked in? Why are you asking me to prove I can afford items before I've even indicated I want to buy them? Other customers were now openly staring. Sarah Martinez pulled out her phone and began recording, sensing that something significant was happening. Tom Wilson, another customer, watched with growing discomfort as he recognized the familiar pattern of racial profiling. Robert realized he had an audience and became defensive. I follow all customers who seem like they might be problematic. It's my store, and I have the right to protect my inventory. Problematic? Marcus asked. In what way do I seem problematic? I've been polite. I've been respectful. I've been quietly looking at products. What exactly makes me problematic? The question hung in the air because everyone in the store knew the answer, even if Robert wouldn't say it out loud. Marcus was being treated as suspicious for one reason, the color of his skin. Robert, realizing he was losing control of the situation, decided to double down. You know what? I think you should leave. I don't feel comfortable with you in my store. The words echoed through the electronic store like a gunshot. Several customers gasped audibly. Sarah Martinez's phone was still recording, capturing every word of the exchange. Marcus stood perfectly still for a moment, processing what had just happened. He had been asked to leave a store for no reason other than the store owner's prejudice. The injustice of it burned in his chest, but he also knew something Robert didn't know. Something that would soon turn this entire situation upside down. You're asking me to leave? Marcus asked, his voice still remarkably calm. Yes, I am. Please exit my store. Marcus nodded slowly. I want to be very clear about what's happening here. You're asking me to leave because you've decided, based on my appearance, that I'm somehow a threat to your business. You've followed me around, questioned my ability to afford your products, and now you're asking me to leave despite the fact that I've done nothing wrong. I'm asking you to leave because I don't want any trouble, Robert said, his voice rising. The only trouble here is the trouble you've created by treating me differently than you would treat any other customer. Marcus replied. I could see this point. Marcus made a decision. He pulled out his phone and made a call. It's Marcus. Yes, I'm at Henderson's Electronics right now. No, there's been a complication. The owner has asked me to leave the store because he's decided I'm suspicious. Yes, that's right. Can you come down here, please? Bring the contracts and the purchase orders. Yes, all of them. Thank you. Robert watched this exchange with growing unease. Something about Marcus's calm demeanor, his professional phone call, and his complete lack of intimidation was starting to worry him. "Who was that?" Robert asked. "My business manager," Marcus replied. "She's coming down with some paperwork you might find interesting." While they waited, more customers gathered, drawn by the commotion. Word was spreading through the store about what was happening. Some customers were recording with their phones. Others were shaking their heads in disapproval at Robert's behavior. Marcus stood calmly near the entrance, no longer trying to shop, simply waiting. His dignity in the face of such treatment was striking. He wasn't arguing. He wasn't causing a scene. He was simply existing in the space while Robert grew more agitated. "Look, maybe we can work this out," Robert said, sensing that something was shifting in the situation. "Work what out?" Marcus asked. "You've asked me to leave your store. I'm respecting your wishes. I'm just waiting for my business manager to arrive." 10 minutes later, a professional-looking woman in her 30s entered the store. Janet Chun was Marcus's business manager, and she carried a leather briefcase that looked very official. She looked around the store, spotted Marcus, and walked directly to him. "Marcus, I'm so sorry this happened," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I have all the paperwork you requested." She opened her briefcase and pulled out several documents. "Here are the purchase orders for the $30,000 in electronics you plan to buy today. Here's the contract with the city for the Digital Bridges program. And here's the letter from the mayor's office endorsing your nonprofit." Robert's face went pale as he heard the numbers. $50,000. That was nearly a month's revenue for his store, but Janet wasn't finished. "Oh, and Marcus, I have some news about the downtown development project. The city council approved your proposal." She handed him another document. "Congratulations. You're now the official technology consultant for the entire downtown revitalization project. The contract is worth $1.2 million over 3 years." The store had gone completely silent. Everyone was staring at Marcus, processing what they had just heard. This man, who had been treated as a suspicious character, was apparently a successful businessman with contracts worth over $1 million. But the biggest shock was yet to come. Janet pulled out one more document. "And here's the paperwork for your latest acquisition. The building on 5th Street has been purchased. You're now the owner of Henderson Plaza." Robert's face drained of all color. Henderson Plaza was the building that housed Henderson's electronics. Marcus Thompson wasn't just a customer. He was about to become Robert's landlord. "I'm sorry," Robert stammered. "Did you say Henderson Plaza?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, I purchased the building last week. The paperwork just finalized this morning. I was actually planning to stop by and introduce myself to all the tenants after I finished my shopping." The irony was devastating. Robert had just discriminated against his own future landlord. The man he had treated as a suspicious character was now the person who would decide whether Henderson's electronics could continue operating in the building. But Marcus wasn't finished revealing the layers of this situation. "Janet, did you bring the information about the Downtown Business Association?" "Yes," Janet replied, pulling out another folder. "Marcus, you've been elected president of the Downtown Business Association. Your term starts next month." Robert looked like he might faint. The man he had just asked to leave his store was about to become the president of the organization that represented all downtown businesses, including Henderson's Electronics. The customers in the store were now openly staring, some with their mouths hanging open. Sarah Martinez was still recording, realizing she was capturing something extraordinary. Marcus looked at Robert with a mixture of sadness and disappointment. "Mr. Henderson, I came into your store this morning planning to make a significant purchase and to introduce myself as your new landlord and the incoming president of the business association. I was looking forward to working with you to make downtown Portland a thriving, inclusive community for all businesses." Robert's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I didn't know. I wasn't trying to." "You weren't trying to what?" Marcus asked. "You weren't trying to discriminate against me? You weren't trying to make me feel unwelcome in your store? You weren't trying to treat me differently because of the color of my skin?" The truth hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Everyone in the store knew exactly what had happened and why it had happened. Marcus continued, his voice still calm, but now carrying the weight of authority. Mr. Henderson, I want you to think about what just happened here. You made assumptions about me based on my appearance. You treated me as suspicious and unwelcome. You asked me to leave your store. You did all of this without knowing anything about me, my character, my business, or my intentions. Robert was sweating now, realizing the full scope of his mistake. Mr. Thompson, I apologize. I made a terrible mistake. Can we start over? Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Mr. Henderson, the question isn't whether we can start over. The question is whether you've learned anything from this experience. He gestured to the other customers in the store. Look around you. Look at the faces of your customers. Look at the people who have been watching this entire interaction. What do you think they've learned about Henderson's electronics today? Indeed, the customers were looking at Robert with expressions ranging from disappointment to disgust. Several were already heading for the door, clearly planning to take their business elsewhere. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Robert something on the screen. This is my social media following. I have 200,000 followers across various platforms. I'm a respected voice in the business community. In 5 minutes, I could share what happened here today, and it would reach thousands of people. Robert's face went from pale to green. Please, Mr. Thompson, I'll do anything to make this right. Anything. Marcus studied him for a moment. Mr. Henderson, I'm not interested in destroying your business, but I am interested in seeing real change. Not just apologies, but actual transformation. He looked around the store. How many employees of color do you have? Robert looked uncomfortable. Well, we don't really. That's what I thought, Marcus said. How many community outreach programs does your business support? Robert's discomfort grew. We donate to charity. Sometimes I see. Marcus turned to Janet. What were my plans for the Digital Bridges program? Janet consulted her notes. You're going to purchase computers and equipment to set up technology centers in underserved communities. You also plan to partner with local businesses to provide internships and job training opportunities. Marcus nodded. Mr. Henderson, I'm going to give you a choice. You can continue running your business the way you always have, making assumptions about people based on their appearance, treating customers differently based on your prejudices. If you choose that path, I'll respect your choice, but I'll also make sure the community knows about the kind of business you run. Robert was hanging on every word. Or, Marcus continued, you can choose to become part of the solution. You can partner with Digital Bridges to provide internships for young people from underserved communities. You can commit to hiring a diverse workforce. You can become a store that truly serves and welcomes all customers. The offer hung in the air. Robert realized he was being given a second chance, an opportunity to transform his business and his community standing. If you choose the second path, Marcus added, I'll not only place my $30,000 order today, but I'll also make Henderson's Electronics the official technology partner for all Downtown Business Association members. That's potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in business. Robert's eyes widened. The man he had discriminated against was offering him the business opportunity of a lifetime. But, Marcus said, his voice becoming stern, this isn't just about money. This is about genuine change. This is about you confronting your own biases and committing to treating all customers with respect and dignity. Marcus looked around the store again. Mr. Henderson, discrimination isn't just morally wrong, it's bad for business. Today, you almost lost $30,000 in immediate sales, over $1 million in potential future business, and the respect of your community. Why? Because you made assumptions about a customer based on his appearance. The lesson was clear, and everyone in the store understood it. Robert took a deep breath. Mr. Thompson, I owe you a sincere apology. You're right about everything. I made assumptions based on prejudice. I treated you unfairly, and I'm ashamed of my behavior. Marcus nodded. I appreciate the apology, Mr. Henderson, but apologies are just words. What matters is what you do next. Robert looked around his store, at his customers, at his employees who had witnessed the entire exchange. He realized that this moment would define not just his relationship with Marcus, but the future of his business. I accept your offer, Robert said. I want to partner with Digital Bridges. I want to hire diversely. I want to learn how to do better. Marcus smiled for the first time since entering the store. Then let's start right now. Janet, please give Mr. Henderson the details about our internship program. Over the next hour, something remarkable happened in Henderson's Electronics. What had started as a painful example of discrimination transformed into a genuine collaboration. Robert listened as Marcus and Janet explained the Digital Bridges program, how it worked, and how Henderson's Electronics could be involved. Marcus explained how young people from underserved communities would benefit from real-world experience in electronics retail, how they could learn about business operations, customer service, and technology. He talked about the importance of creating opportunities for people who might otherwise be overlooked. Robert, to his credit, asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in making the partnership work. He began to understand that his store could be more than just a place to sell electronics. It could be a place that helped build community. The other customers in the store watched this transformation with fascination. Some stayed longer than they had planned, wanting to see how the situation would resolve. Others left and returned with friends, having heard about what was happening. Sarah Martinez, who had been recording the entire incident, approached Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, what you did here today was incredible. You turned a moment of discrimination into an opportunity for education and growth." Marcus shook his head. "I didn't do anything incredible. I just refused to let prejudice define the outcome of this situation." He looked at Robert, who was now enthusiastically discussing internship opportunities with Janet. Mr. Henderson made a mistake, but he also made a choice to grow from it. That's what matters. As the day went on, word spread throughout downtown Portland about what had happened at Henderson's Electronics. The story took on different versions as it spread, but the core message remained consistent. Assumptions based on appearance can be costly, both morally and financially. Local news reporters arrived at the store, wanting to interview Marcus about the incident. He was gracious, but focused his comments on the positive outcome rather than the discrimination he had experienced. "Today wasn't about me being treated unfairly," Marcus told the reporters. "Today was about turning a negative situation into a positive opportunity for community building." Robert also spoke to the media, and his words were genuine. "I made a serious mistake today. I let my prejudices influence how I treated a customer, and I'm ashamed of that. But Mr. Thompson gave me a chance to do better, and I'm committed to making real changes in my business and in myself." Over the following weeks, Henderson's Electronics began its transformation. Robert hired 2 employees from the communities that Digital Bridges served. He partnered with local schools to provide technology education programs. He implemented customer service training that specifically addressed unconscious bias. The store sales increased dramatically as word spread about the positive changes. Customers who had never shopped there before began visiting, drawn by the store's commitment to community involvement and inclusive practices. Marcus kept his promise as well. He placed his $30,000 order, and Henderson's Electronics became the official technology partner for the Downtown Business Association. The partnership brought significant business to the store and helped establish it as a community leader. But perhaps the most important change was in Robert Henderson himself. The incident had forced him to confront his own biases and assumptions. He began reading books about unconscious bias, attending workshops on inclusive business practices, and actively working to change his perspective. 6 months later, Henderson's Electronics was recognized by the City Council for its outstanding community involvement. The store had become a model for how businesses could contribute to community development and social justice. The recognition ceremony. Robert Henderson stood before the City Council and the community to accept the award. His words were heartfelt and genuine. 6 months ago, I made one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I discriminated against a customer based on his appearance. And in doing so, I almost lost everything that mattered about my business. But that customer, Marcus Thompson, taught me that mistakes can become opportunities for growth if we're willing to learn from them. He looked at Marcus, who was sitting in the audience with a smile on his face. Marcus didn't just give me a second chance. He gave me a blueprint for becoming a better business owner and a better person. The changes we've made at Henderson's Electronics aren't just about being politically correct or avoiding bad publicity. They're about recognizing the humanity and potential in every person who walks through our doors. The audience applauded, but Robert wasn't finished. I want every business owner in this room to understand something. Discrimination isn't just morally wrong. It's stupid. When we make assumptions about people based on their appearance, we miss opportunities to serve great customers, to learn from different perspectives, and to build stronger communities. He paused, letting his words sink in. Today, Henderson's Electronics is more successful than it's ever been. We have more customers, more revenue, and more community respect. But more importantly, we have a sense of purpose that goes beyond just selling electronics. We're helping to build a community where everyone is valued and respected. The applause was thunderous. Marcus stood up and applauded along with everyone else, proud of how far Robert had come. After the ceremony, Marcus and Robert spoke privately. You know, Robert said, I've been thinking about that day a lot. I keep wondering what would have happened if I had just treated you like any other customer from the beginning. Marcus smiled. You would have made a $30,000 sale, and I would have had a pleasant shopping experience. But maybe that's not the most important outcome. What do you mean? Robert, what happened between us has changed both of our lives. It's changed your business, it's strengthened my commitment to fighting discrimination, and it's shown our community that people can grow and change. Marcus looked around the transformed store. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the most painful experiences. The discrimination I experienced that day was wrong, but the conversation it started has led to real change. Robert nodded. I just wish I hadn't had to hurt you to learn those lessons. The hurt was real, Marcus acknowledged. But what matters is what we did with it. We could have let it create more division, more anger, more prejudice. Instead, we chose to use it as a foundation for building something better. As the months passed, the story of what happened at Henderson's Electronics became a case study in business schools and diversity training programs. It was a powerful example of how discrimination can be transformed into opportunity when people are willing to confront their biases and work together for change. Marcus Thompson continued to grow his nonprofit organization, Digital Bridges, which now serve thousands of young people across the Pacific Northwest. His work as president of the Downtown Business Association helped transform Portland's downtown into a model of inclusive economic development. Robert Henderson became a sought-after speaker on unconscious bias and inclusive business practices. He often told the story of his encounter with Marcus, using it as a powerful illustration of how prejudice can blind us to opportunities and how courage can transform mistakes into growth. The two men remained friends and business partners, with Henderson's Electronics continuing to serve as a technology partner for Digital Bridges and other community organizations. But perhaps the most important legacy of their story was the ripple effect it had throughout the community. Other business owners began examining their own practices and biases. Customers became more aware of discrimination and more willing to speak up when they witnessed it. Young people learned that they could demand to be treated with respect and dignity. The story became a reminder that justice doesn't always come in the form of punishment or revenge. Sometimes justice comes in the form of transformation, growth, and the courage to build something better from the ashes of what was wrong, as Marcus often said when speaking about the incident. The goal isn't to destroy people who discriminate. The goal is to create a world where discrimination becomes so clearly wrong, so obviously counterproductive, that people choose to treat each other with respect and dignity. And that's exactly what happened at Henderson's Electronics, where a moment of prejudice became a foundation for justice, growth, and community building. The store's success continued to grow, not just financially, but in terms of its impact on the community. Henderson's Electronics became a place where young people from all backgrounds could find opportunities, where customers were treated with respect regardless of their appearance, and where the power of second chances was demonstrated every day. Robert Henderson often reflected on how close he had come to losing everything because of his prejudices. The $30,000 he almost lost that first day was nothing compared to the ongoing business, community respect, and personal growth he would have missed. Marcus Thompson continued to use his platform and success to fight discrimination in all its forms. His story became a powerful tool for educating others about the real costs of prejudice and the possibilities that emerge when we choose to see people as individuals rather than stereotypes. The transformation of Henderson's Electronics stood as a testament to the power of courage, both the courage to confront discrimination and the courage to admit mistakes and grow from them. It showed that while prejudice can cause real harm, it doesn't have to be the end of the story. In the end, the story of Marcus Thompson and Robert Henderson became more than just a tale of discrimination and justice. It became a story of hope, showing that people can change, that communities can grow, and that the arc of justice truly does bend toward fairness when people of good will choose to work together. The lesson was clear. When we judge people by their character rather than their appearance, when we treat everyone with respect and dignity, we don't just do the right thing. We create opportunities for success, growth, and community building that benefit everyone. And in a world that often seems divided by prejudice and misunderstanding, that lesson has never been more important. The story of Marcus Thompson and Robert Henderson reminds us that discrimination isn't just morally wrong, it's self-defeating. When we make assumptions about people based on their appearance, we rob ourselves of opportunities to connect, to learn, and to grow. But this story also shows us something hopeful. People can change. When confronted with the reality of their prejudices, when given the opportunity to grow and learn, many people will choose to do better. Marcus could have used his power to destroy Robert's business. Instead, he chose to use it as an opportunity for education and transformation. That choice didn't just change Robert's life. It changed their entire community. The next time you find yourself making assumptions about someone based on their appearance, remember this story. Remember that the person you're judging might be exactly the person you need to meet. They might be your next customer, your next business partner, or your next friend. But more than that, remember that how we treat others says more about us than it does about them. When we choose respect over prejudice, understanding over assumption, and growth over judgment, we create a world that works better for everyone. Thank you for joining us on Melanin Mosaic for another powerful story about the triumph of justice over prejudice. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it inspired you to examine your own assumptions and biases, then we've accomplished our mission. Remember to subscribe to Melanin Mosaic for more stories that challenge prejudice and celebrate the power of treating everyone with dignity and respect. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that could change how you see the world. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below with your thoughts about Marcus and Robert's journey. And most importantly, take the lessons from this story into your own life. Until next time, remember, in a world full of assumptions, be the person who chooses to see the truth. Be the person who treats everyone with respect. Be the person who builds bridges instead of walls. This is Melanin Mosaic, reminding you that justice isn't just about punishment. It's about transformation, growth, and the courage to build a better world for everyone. Subscribe now, and let's continue this important conversation together.